My mom said, "I just used your card for a bill." 12 hours later, my account was drained, $4, 900 gone. My dad smirked. "Think of it as charity." I didn't argue. I just did one quiet thing. The next morning at 9 a.m., my mom opened her Gmail and screamed so loud the neighbors ran outside. Imagine pouring your heart and soul into something, watching your future take shape, only to have it ripped away by the very person you trusted most. That knot in my stomach when my phone started buzzing wasn't just nerves. It was the sickening realization that my entire life savings, my freedom, was vanishing in real time, betrayed by my own mother. What happened next changed how I'll ever trust family again. Let me tell you a bit about my family first, to set the scene for this whole mess. My mom, Sarah, she's 48, and she used to be the rock. The one who juggled every bill, every dollar, with a precision I still marvel at. When I was growing up, she had this little notebook where she tracked every penny. But somewhere along the line, something shifted. I started seeing these shopping bags piling up in her closet, tags still attached to clothes she never wore. There were hushed, tense arguments between her and my dad about credit card statements, and Mom just seemed to get more and more anxious whenever the mail arrived. They were whispers of a storm I didn't understand yet. My dad, Richard, he's 50, built his marketing consultancy from scratch, super successful. But at home, he's all distant, all logic, all business. You could feel the emotional temperature drop 10 degrees when he walked into a room. He'd often be locked away in his home office, only emerging for meals or to deliver brief, cutting comments about household expenses. And then there's my younger sister, Lisa. She's 22, smart, ambitious, studying communications. She always seemed to be short on cash, even with a part-time job. And Mom, bless her heart, always seemed to find a way to help Lisa out with textbooks or rent, even when things were tight for her. The financial tension in our house, it was a constant hum, a background noise I'd grown up with. Dad earns good money but holds the purse strings tight, demanding justification for every expense. Mom manages the day-to-day, but seemed perpetually stressed about making ends meet. Their arguments always circled back to the same topics: unnecessary purchases, hidden receipts, dwindling savings. That $4,900, that wasn't just cash in a bank account. That was a year of grinding, of late nights, of saying no to friends' invitations. I'm 26, a software engineer fresh out of college, and I'd landed an entry-level job. The salary was decent, but student loans ate a chunk. I moved back home temporarily to save up. My goal was clear: enough for a security deposit and first month's rent on my own place, and then a used Toyota Camry I had my eye on for $1,000 for the car, $900 for furnishing my new apartment. Every morning, I dragged myself onto a crowded bus for 45 minutes, dreaming of the freedom that car would bring. I took on freelance coding projects on weekends, volunteered for extra shifts. While my friends went out, I stayed home. This wasn't just money. It was my independence, my future. It was tangible proof that I was finally becoming a real adult after years of being a broke student. Now my mom and I, we had a history. She'd ask for 20, maybe $50 before payday, and she'd always pay me back, sometimes with a little extra. Dad, he never asked. His pride wouldn't allow it. So when her text came through, "Craig, honey, electricity bill's due, my card's declined. Can I just use yours for this one? $300. I'll pay you back tomorrow." My first instinct was pure love. My gut clenched a little. Yeah, but this was Mom, the woman who tucked me in, cheered my victories, nursed me through fevers. How could I say no? I looked at my bank balance, that hard-earned $4,900, and told myself it was just a temporary loan. That little whisper of doubt, it was easily drowned out by a lifetime of trust. "Of course, you can use my card," I texted back. "Just let me know when you're done so I can keep track of things." Her reply was instant, gushing with thanks. "You're the best son ever. Just this one bill, I promise. Money will be back first thing tomorrow." If only I'd paid attention to the tiny cracks then, the slight delay before she told me which utility needed paying, the unusual typos in her messages, as if she was typing in a hurry or under stress, the Fact, she asked for my card details instead of just letting me pay it directly. Little things that screamed warning in hindsight, but at the time, they were just Mom. I gave her the numbers. Over the phone, my voice steady, hers carrying that familiar, warm tone. We ended the call, me feeling good about helping. That warm, fuzzy feeling of helping Mom. It lasted exactly 97 minutes. It was Tuesday evening when my phone started buzzing with transaction alerts. The first, $312, the utility bill. Okay, normal. 6 minutes later, another one, $200 at a gas station. Huh, that seemed high. Our local gas station never needed that much, even for Dad's SUV. By 6:45 p.m., 3 more hit, $150 at a convenience store, then $400 at an ATM withdrawal, then another $300 from a different ATM. My heart hammered. I tried calling Mom immediately. Straight to voicemail. Mom, I'm seeing some strange transactions. Please call me back. Her text came moments later. Sorry, honey, in a meeting with your dad's business partner for dinner. Can't talk. Everything's fine, just paying some overdue bills. We'll explain later. But everything was not fine. Mom didn't do dinner. Meetings with Dad's business contacts. And what bills needed $700 cash withdrawals from ATMs. I called Lisa, my younger sister, voice tight with panic. Hey Craig, what's up? She sounded distracted. Do you know where Mom is right now? She said she's in a business dinner, but I'm seeing some weird charges on my card. A long, agonizing pause. I'm not sure I should say anything. Lisa, please. My money is disappearing as we speak. She sighed heavily. I drove Mom to the Silver Eagle Casino earlier today. She said she just needed to talk to someone there about a billing issue, but she had that look, you know? My stomach dropped out. The Silver Eagle, a casino 30 miles outside the city. Mom, gambling. How long? How long has Mom been going to casinos? I asked, my voice tight. I don't know exactly, Lisa admitted. A few months, maybe. Longer. She made me promise not to tell Dad. I thanked Lisa and hung up. The next transaction. Alert snapped me out of it. Nearly $2,000 gone. In less than an hour. Almost half my savings. I screamed into Mom's voicemail. Nothing. I texted multiple times with increasing urgency. No response. I didn't even bother with a shirt. Panic rising, I grabbed my keys and hit the road, tearing through traffic. The 20-minute drive to my parents' house? I made it in 15, braking speed limits the whole way, watching transaction after transaction pop up on my phone like cruel little fireworks. Another ATM withdrawal. A purchase at the casino gift shop. A charge from the casino restaurant. Each one was a punch to the gut, a betrayal deepening with every dollar. My money, my future, being fed into slot machines by my own mother. As I pulled into the driveway, Mom's car was already there. My hand shook on the ignition. The trust was shattered. I just didn't know how deep the cracks went yet. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation, and stepped out of the car. I pulled into my parents' driveway at 7:32 p.m. The living room lights were on, and as I approached the front door, I could hear raised voices inside. I used my key, walking in without knocking. The scene that greeted me felt like walking onto a stage mid-performance. Mom was crumpled on the couch, face blotchy and eyes red-rimmed, clutching a crumpled tissue. Dad stood, rigid by the fireplace, that cold mask on his face. They both fell silent. Craig, Mom whimpered, her voice wavering. What are you doing here? I just held up my phone, the screen blazing with transactions. Explaining this, I hope. Dad's eyes darted to my phone, then back to Mom, a flicker of grim satisfaction. Sarah, he said, dangerously quiet. Tell him. Mom's face crumpled further. She looked down at her hands, twisting the tissue into shreds. I'm so sorry, Craig. I was going to pay it all back. I just needed a little cash to cover some debts. And then I thought maybe I could win enough to pay everything off, and you would never. No. Debts? What debts? I asked, still standing in the doorway, not trusting myself to move. Closer. Dad laughed. A short, humorless sound. Your mother has quite a collection of IOUs. Credit cards, personal loans, money borrowed from friends, and of course, her tab at the casino. Mom actually hissed at him. You weren't supposed to tell anyone. That, Dad retorted, his voice cold. was before you started stealing from our son. Stealing. The word hit me like a physical blow. I slumped into an armchair, my legs suddenly too weak to hold me. How long has this been going on? The gambling? 3 years, give or take, Dad said, before Mom could even open her mouth. The serious debt? About 18 months. This isn't the first time she's taken money that wasn't hers. My phone refreshed again. I did the math. $4,900, I said quietly. It's all gone. Every cent I saved. Mom was openly sobbing now. I was so sure I could win it back. The dealer kept saying my luck was about to turn. Just one more hand, one more spin. My rage flared, not just at Mom, but at Dad. And you knew about this. I turned to him. You knew she had a gambling problem, and you didn't warn me? Dad, ever so calmly, straightened his posture. I've dealt with this problem for years. Craig, I've paid off her debts. Sent her to counseling. She doesn't attend. Frozen credit cards. She somehow manages to replace. At some point, everyone has to learn their own lessons. So this was a lesson. I bit out, my voice rising. Using my savings as some kind of object lesson? Consider it charity, he said, that slightest curl of his lip. Family charity. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mother, had drained my entire future, and my father had apparently stood by and let it happen. The betrayal was so complete, it left me breathless. Just then, Lisa appeared in the doorway, pale and wide-eyed, having apparently arrived during our confrontation. I didn't know she was going to take your money, Craig, she said quickly. I swear I just thought she was meeting someone. I just nodded, numb, unable to find words for my sister, who looked as lost as I felt. The family I thought I knew, the parents I had trusted, implicitly, suddenly seemed like strangers. Worse than strangers. People who had knowingly harmed me. I'll pay you back, Mom wailed between sobs. I promise I will. I just need a little time. With what money, Sarah? Dad's voice was ice. Your credit cards are maxed out. Your personal account is overdrawn. You've already borrowed from everyone who would lend to you. Mom had no answer. She just cried harder, her shoulders shaking. And in that moment, surrounded by my family, yet feeling utterly alone, I realized the money wasn't even the worst part of what I had lost today. It was the trust. Simple, fundamental trust in the people who were supposed to love me most. The weight of this realization pressed down on my chest, making it difficult to breathe. I had always seen our family as imperfect, but fundamentally solid. Now it seemed more like a carefully constructed facade with rot and decay hidden just beneath the surface. Show me the transactions again, Dad said, holding out his hand for my phone. I passed it to him silently, watching as his eyes scanned the long list of withdrawals and purchases. His jaw tightened visibly with each swipe. The Silver Eagle Casino again. He turned to Mom, who seemed to shrink further into the couch. After everything we discussed, after all the promises you made, you went back there and took our son's money. I thought I could fix it, Mom whimpered. Just one good win. That's all I needed. That's what you always say, Dad replied, his voice flat with exhaustion rather than anger now. Just one more game, one more chance, one more loan. When does it end, Sarah? Mom had no answer. She just stared at her hands, tears falling onto her twisted tissue. Lisa moved to sit beside Mom, putting an arm around her shoulders. I noticed how my sister positioned herself slightly angled, as if physically placing herself between our parents. How many times had she played this mediator role before? How many family crises had she weathered that I knew nothing about? We need to figure out how to fix this, Lisa said, glancing between all of us. Craig needs his money back, and Mom needs help. Dad handed my phone back to me with a heavy sigh. Your sister is right, at least about the second part. Your mother needs professional help, which she has repeatedly refused. As for your money, he trailed off, looking at Mom with a mixture of anger and resignation. I will get it back, Mom insisted, straightening slightly. I can borrow from my sister, Judy, or maybe sell some jewelry. Your sister stopped taking your calls after the last unpaid loan, Dad reminded her, and the real jewelry was pawned months ago. Each revelation felt like another trapdoor opening beneath me. How much did I not know about what had been happening in my own family? How Long had this deception been going on while I moved through the house, focused on my own goals and problems? Why didn't anyone tell me? I asked, looking from Dad to Lisa. Either of you? If you knew this was going on, why keep it secret? Lisa looked down, unable to meet my eyes. Dad's gaze remained steady, but I could see the conflict there. Your mother begged us not to, he finally said. She was ashamed, and frankly, I thought I could handle it. I've been managing your mother's episodes for years now, paying off debts, making excuses to friends, monitoring accounts. I never imagined she would target your savings. The clinical way he described it, managing episodes, made it sound so cold and distant, as if Mom's addiction was simply an inconvenient behavioral quirk rather than a destructive force tearing through our family. Well, your management strategy has failed spectacularly, I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. My entire savings is gone, and from the sound of it, Mom is deeper in her addiction than ever. Dad flinched slightly, the first crack in his composed facade. You are right, he admitted. I failed. I thought I could protect this family by containing the problem. Privately, I was wrong. Coming from my father, who never admitted fault, this was a startling concession, but it did nothing to bring back my money or repair the trust that had been shattered. What happens now? I asked, looking around at the broken circle of my family. None of them had an answer. I want my money back, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. All of it, by the end of the week. Mom nodded frantically, still crying. I will find a way. I promise. How exactly do you plan to do that, Sarah? Dad's voice cut through the room like ice. You have exhausted every financial resource you had access to. I could sell my jewelry, Mom offered weakly. Dad laughed again. That same cold sound. The real pieces or the costume? Jewelry? Because you pawned the real ones last year to cover your losses at the slot machines. I had not known about that. Grandma's pearls. Mom's engagement ring. Gone. The revelations kept coming, each one more painful than the last. I want to know exactly how bad this is, I demanded, standing up. No more secrets, no more lies. How much debt are we talking about? Mom and Dad exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them that excluded me entirely. Tell him, Dad finally said. He deserves to know what he's dealing with. Mom looked at her. Hands, voice barely audible. About $27,000 across different cards and loans. The number hit me like a physical blow. $27,000. How is that possible? It adds up fast when you're paying 24% interest, Dad said grimly. And when you keep digging the hole deeper instead of climbing out. If you knew it was this bad, why didn't you do something? I asked Dad, anger building again. Why just stand by and watch? I have done plenty. Dad snapped, his composure finally cracking. Paid off $60,000 in debts over the past 2 years. Arranged for counseling appointments she never keeps. Taken control of the household accounts she finds ways around. At some point, Craig, a person has to want to change. The argument escalated quickly from there. I accused Dad of enabling Mom's addiction by covering it up. Dad accused me of naivety, saying I had no idea what he had been dealing with. Mom alternated between tearful apologies and defensive justifications for her behavior. Lisa tried desperately to mediate, only to get caught in the crossfire. I will go to Gamblers Anonymous, Mom promised, starting tomorrow, and I will get a job to pay you back, Craig. You've promised that before, Dad reminded her coldly. You attended exactly 2 meetings before, claiming they weren't helpful. This time is different, Mom insisted, because now you have stolen from your son instead of just your husband. Dad's words were brutal, and Mom flinched as if he had slapped her. I took a deep breath, trying to think clearly through my anger and disappointment. I need a concrete plan, not promises. Either I get my money back or I report the card as stolen. Mom gasped. You wouldn't. It was stolen, I said flatly. You took it for one purpose and used it for another without my consent. He's right, Mom, Lisa said quietly. What you did was wrong. Mom turned to Lisa with a wounded expression. Even you are against me. Now, after I helped with your tuition when your scholarship fell through. Lisa went pale. What are you talking about? Dad paid my tuition. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, too late to take back the words. Dad's expression darkened further. What tuition payment, Sarah? The truth spilled out in painful fragments. Mom had apparently withdrawn $8,000 from Lisa's college fund last semester, claiming to Lisa that Dad had arranged it, and telling Dad that the university had offered an additional grant. Neither had thought to verify the story with the other. The money is gone, too, isn't it? Lisa asked, her voice small. My graduation fund. Mom could not meet her eyes, which was answer enough. Jesus Christ, Dad muttered, running a hand through his hair. Is there any account you haven't rated? As the argument continued to spiral, I noticed Mom's phone light up on the coffee table. The notification caught my eye. An email preview from an account I didn't recognize, containing the words payment reminder and outstanding balance. What is gambling78@gmail.com? I asked, suddenly, reading the address on the screen. Mom lunged for the phone, but I was faster. I snatched it up, holding it out of her reach. Give that back. It's private, she shouted, panic, replacing her tears. Not anymore, I said, opening the Gmail app. Not when you've taken my money. The email inbox that loaded was not Mom's usual account. This was something else. Entirely. Hundreds of messages from online casinos, payment processors, and what looked like private lenders with questionable business practices. Some had subject lines promising easy wins. Others were clearly threats about overdue payments. You have a secret email account for your gambling? Dad asked, looking over my shoulder at the screen. The surprise in his voice suggested. Even he had not known how deep this went. Mom collapsed back onto the couch, all fight leaving her. I needed a way to keep track of everything, she said dully. The different accounts, the payment schedules, the lies, I added, scrolling through message after message. Don't forget, the lies. The discovery of the secret Gmail account marked a turning point in the confrontation. There was no more denying the extent of the problem, no more minimizing it as an occasional lapse in judgment. This was a systematic deception maintained over years that had now engulfed the entire family. Dad took the phone from me, his face hardening as he scrolled through the emails. This ends tonight, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. No more chances, Sarah. No more bailouts. Mom looked up at him, genuine fear in her eyes. What does that mean? It means I'm done, Dad replied. Either you get serious help or I'm filing for separation. The ultimatum hung in the air, changing everything. For all their arguments and tension, I had never seriously considered that my parents' marriage might end. From the shocked expression on Lisa's face, neither had she. Richard, please, Mom said, reaching for Dad's hand. He stepped back, avoiding her touch. We'll get help this time. Real help. You've said that before, Dad replied. Many times. I mean it now, she insisted. I will do whatever it takes. Please just give me one more chance. Dad looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he glanced at me. It's not just my decision anymore. You have hurt Craig now, too. He gets a say in what happens next. All eyes turned to me. Suddenly, I was cast in the role of judge, expected to deliver a verdict on my own mother's fate. The weight of that responsibility felt crushing. I just want my money back, I said finally, and I want to know this will never happen again. Mom nodded eagerly. I will. Find a way to pay you back, and I will get help. I swear. But as I looked at her desperate expression, at Dad's skeptical one, at Lisa's tear-streaked face, I knew that simple promises were not going to be enough this time. The trust was too badly broken. We needed something more concrete, more binding than just words. I need to think, I said, standing up. I can't make any decisions right now. I headed for the door, needing space, air, distance from this suffocating atmosphere of deception and recrimination. Where are you going? Lisa called after me. Somewhere I can think clearly, I replied. I'll be back tomorrow. As I walked out into the cool evening air, I felt both incredibly alone and strangely liberated. For the first time, I was seeing my family without illusions, without the comfortable myths we had constructed about ourselves. The truth was ugly and painful, but at least it was real. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another transaction alert. I didn't even bother to look. There was nothing left to take. I booked a cheap motel, mind racing. The money was gone. My family was shattered. But what else could I do? The next morning, I called in sick to work and began methodically exploring all my options for recovering my money. None looked promising. My bank said since I gave permission, it wasn't fraud. The casino said gambling losses are final. Mom's friends to borrow from? She'd already burned those bridges. Aunt Judy? Mom had borrowed $3,000 from her, claiming it was for home repairs. As each potential solution collapsed, my focus returned to that secret Gmail account. The picture it painted was even more disturbing. Online casinos, payday loan companies with astronomical rates, even private lenders with names like Cash King and veiled threats. By mid-afternoon, it was clear conventional routes were closed. Dad flatly refused to help. She needs to face consequences. Lisa offered her last $300, which I gently refused. I pulled out my laptop, my fingers flying. I compiled all the evidence, Mom's secret emails, the financial summary, the list of treatment programs. Then I drafted an email to my parents and Lisa. My conditions were clear. Mom in residential treatment within 72 hours. Dad covers costs, commits to family therapy, and they sign a formal agreement to repay my $4,900 in 6 months. If these conditions aren't met, I wrote, I will forward all evidence of financial fraud to the appropriate authorities and financial institutions. This is not a bluff. I love you both, but I will not enable this destruction any longer. It was the nuclear option, threatening my own mother with jail. My finger hovered over send. But then I thought of the years of lies, the casual way my future had been gambled away. This was the only leverage I had left. I hit send. Then I scheduled another email to send at 9 a.m. the next morning to the police, the attorney general, the banks, unless I canceled it. I turned my phone to silent and tried to sleep, knowing that when morning came, our family would never be the same. Lisa's text came through just as I was drifting off. Whatever you decide, I support you. Love you, big brother. At least I wasn't entirely alone. I barely slept a wink, but when my alarm shrieked at 8:30 a.m., I was resolved. No calls, no texts. Had they called my bluff? 30 minutes. That's all I had before the automated email went out. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand. At 8:55 a.m., my phone finally rang. Dad, we're ready to talk, he said, no preamble. Your mother has agreed to treatment. We've found a facility that can take her this afternoon. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by suspicion. And the repayment plan? I'll cover it, he said. The full amount, transferred to your account. By the end of business today. What made you decide? I asked, still guarded. A long pause. Your mother saw what you sent. All the documentation, organized so clearly. I think it finally showed her just how deep this has gone. And Craig, I realized I've been part of the problem, too. Enabling her, covering it up, thinking I could handle it privately. I checked the clock. 9 a.m. Somewhere across town, the automated email would be triggering in seconds. I need more than words, I said, my voice unwavering. I need Mom on the phone confirming, and I need that money in my account before I cancel what's about to happen. Cancel what? Dad sounded bewildered. I set up an automated email with all the evidence. It sends at 9 a.m. to the police, the banks, and the Attorney General's office. I have about 30 seconds to stop it. Jesus Christ, Craig. Dad exploded. I heard frantic shuffling. Then Mom's high-pitched, panicked voice. Craig, please. Don't do this. I'm going to treatment today. I swear. Your father has already called the facility. Please. A clamor of voices erupted in the background. What's happening there? I demanded. Your mother just checked her email. Dad explained, back on the line, strained. She saw the countdown. Timer on your message. She's not taking it well. I logged into my email account, fingers flying over the keyboard as I navigated to the scheduled email. It showed sending in the status field. Money, Dad. Now, or the email goes out. I'm making the transfer as we speak, he shouted, his tone urgent. Just stop that email. I clicked cancel send repeatedly, watching the agonizing spinning circle as the system processed my request. After what felt like an eternity, a confirmation appeared. Scheduled email canceled. I let out a long, shaky breath. The tension of the moment leaving me drained. It's done. The email is canceled. Over the phone, I heard Mom's voice rise in what sounded like a wail. Then abrupt silence. What just happened? I asked. She opened the Gmail app on her phone to see if the email had gone out yet. Dad's voice was strained. I think she just saw all the evidence you compiled, organized by date. She's upset. Upset was an understatement. In the background, I could hear Mom crying out something incomprehensible, her voice rising to a shriek. Then came the sound of doors opening, voices calling out in concern. Is that the neighbors? I asked in disbelief. Yes, Dad confirmed, sounding embarrassed. Sharon and Bob from next door? Your mother is quite vocal right now. I closed my laptop and began gathering my things from the motel room. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't let her leave before I arrive. She's not going anywhere, he assured me grimly. Except to treatment this afternoon. When I arrived at my parents' house, the scene was surreal. Mom sat at the kitchen table, her face blotchy and swollen from crying, hands clutched around a mug of untouched tea. Dad stood by the counter, looking exhausted, but somehow more present than I had seen him in years. Lisa sat across from Mom, her expression a mixture of concern and weariness. And surprisingly, our next-door neighbor Sharon was there, too, her arm around Mom's shoulders. The neighbors heard the commotion, Lisa explained quietly as I set my bag down. Sharon came over to check if everything was okay. Mom ended up telling her everything. This was unprecedented. Our family had always maintained a polished facade to the outside world, never revealing the tensions that simmered beneath the surface. For Mom to confess her gambling addiction to a neighbor marked a seismic shift in how she was approaching her problems. I can't hide it anymore, Mom said, looking up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I've been so ashamed, making up stories, digging myself deeper with every lie. I'm sorry, Craig. What I did to you was unforgivable. It's not about forgiveness right now, I said, sitting down across from her. It's about getting you help and making sure this never happens again. Dad slid his phone across the table to me. On the screen was a confirmation of a bank transfer for $1,900 to my account. It's done, he said simply. Sharon squeezed Mom's shoulder gently. I'll drive you to the treatment center this afternoon, Sarah. My cousin went through the same program last year. It's tough, but it works if you commit to it. I glanced at Sharon with new appreciation. Her matter-of-fact support, free from the emotional baggage that weighed down our family's interactions, seemed to be exactly what Mom needed in this moment. The next few hours passed in a blur of practical arrangements. Mom packed a bag for her 30-day stay at the treatment facility. Dad contacted his office to arrange working remotely for the next week. Lisa and I sat at the kitchen table, drafting a formal repayment agreement that all four of us would sign. Why did you do it? I asked Dad when we had a moment alone. Set up the transfer immediately. I mean, you were so against helping yesterday. Dad looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Because you did something I should have done years ago. You refused to enable her. You set a boundary and were willing to enforce it, even at great personal cost. He shook his head slowly. I've been managing this situation instead of addressing it, protecting her and myself from consequences instead of facing the real problem. By 3 p.m., Mom was ready to leave for the treatment center. As Sharon waited in the driveway, Mom turned to me at the front door, her expression more cleared than I had seen in days. Thank you, she said quietly, for not giving up on me, even when you had every right to. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me was still angry, still hurt by her betrayal. Another part recognized the courage it took to face her addiction after years of denial. Just do the work, Mom, I finally said. That's all I ask. After the car pulled away, the house felt strangely empty. The three of us, Dad, Lisa, and I, moved around each other awkwardly and used to this new reality where our family's darkest secret had been dragged into the light. What happens now? Lisa asked as we sat down to a takeout dinner none of us had much appetite for. Now, I said, we start rebuilding, but differently this time. With honesty. Dad nodded, looking older and more vulnerable than I had ever seen him. And with boundaries, he added. You were right about that, Craig. Sometimes love means being tough enough to say no. It was not a perfect resolution, far from it. There would be hard days ahead, relapses perhaps, trust to be rebuilt slowly over time. But as I checked my bank account one more time, seeing my savings restored, I felt something unexpected beneath the lingering hurt and anger. Hope, not just for my car and apartment plans, which could now proceed as intended, but hope for my family, which had been forced to confront its demons in the harsh light of day, and had surprisingly not crumbled completely under the scrutiny. As I drove back to my apartment that evening, I felt both older and strangely lighter. The past 48 hours had changed me in ways I was only beginning to understand. I had discovered strength I didn't know I possessed, the courage to stand up to the people I loved most when necessary, to demand truth even when it was painful. More importantly, I had learned that sometimes the most caring action is not the gentlest one. Sometimes real love requires difficult choices, hard boundaries, and the willingness to risk a relationship in order to save the person you care about. That was 6 months ago. A lot has changed since that explosive morning when Mom's scream brought the neighbors running. The treatment program was not a magic cure, but it was a solid beginning. Mom completed the 30-day residential program, then continued with outpatient therapy and daily Gamblers Anonymous meetings. There have been difficult moments, a relapse in month 3, when she placed online bets using a new email account, immediately followed by a tearful confession to her sponsor. The road to recovery is not linear, but she is traveling it with more honesty than before. Dad transformed too, in his own quieter way. He attended the family sessions at the treatment center, gradually opening up about his own role in enabling Mom's addiction, his need for control, his pride that prevented him from seeking outside help, his tendency to throw money at problems rather than addressing their emotional roots. He is working on all of it with his own therapist now. The formal repayment agreement we signed that day has been honored. My account was restored immediately, but more importantly, Mom and Dad have stuck to the treatment plan. Dad installed financial monitoring software that sends alerts to both him and me if unusual spending patterns emerge. Mom voluntarily surrendered her credit cards and now operates with a prepaid debit card loaded weekly with a reasonable allowance. Lisa and I have become closer through this ordeal. We meet for coffee every Sunday morning, a tradition that started during Mom's treatment when we both needed someone to talk to. She has graduated now and found a job in marketing, living with roommates in an apartment downtown. Her education fund is being gradually replenished by our parents, though it will take time to recover fully. As for me, I did buy that used Toyota Camry. The 45-minute bus commute is now a 20-minute drive, giving me extra time each morning for a proper breakfast or a stop at the gym. I have moved out of my parents' house into a small but comfortable one-bedroom apartment closer to work. The independence feels good, necessary, even for establishing the boundaries I now recognize as essential. The healing process has not been easy. There are still moments when I feel that flash of betrayal all over again. When Mom asks about my finances, or when I receive a transaction alert from my bank. Trust, once broken, does not mend overnight, but it can mend gradually, with consistent effort and demonstrated change. Perhaps the most profound shift has been in how our family communicates. The culture of secrecy that allowed Mom's addiction to flourish has been replaced by sometimes uncomfortable honesty. We talk about money openly now, not just amounts, but the feelings and fears attached to it. We acknowledge problems when they arise instead of sweeping them under the rug. I have learned painful but valuable lessons through this experience. That love sometimes means setting firm boundaries. That helping is not always the same as enabling. That family loyalty should not require blind trust or self-sacrifice. Most importantly, I have learned that addressing a problem directly, however difficult or confrontational that might be, is ultimately kinder than allowing it to fester beneath the surface. My ultimatum, as harsh as it seemed in the moment, was actually the most caring thing I could have done for my mother and for our family as a whole. Mom said something in her 3rd month of recovery that has stayed with me. We were sitting on her porch swing, talking about the past and the damage her addiction had caused. I was so afraid of being seen as a failure, she confessed quietly. I kept thinking I could fix everything myself before anyone noticed how bad things had gotten. Each lie was just buying time until I could make it right. But the lies became the problem, I pointed out. She nodded. The secrets were like a poison. The more I tried to contain them, the sicker I got. She looked at me directly then. When you forced everything into the open, it was like lancing an infection. Painful, but necessary for healing to begin. That's the paradox I've come to understand. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to participate in someone's self-destruction. Sometimes saying no is more compassionate than saying yes. Sometimes the quiet, determined action is more powerful than all the shouting in the world. I still have my difficult days. Moments of anger when I remember how easily my trust was betrayed. Moments of doubt when I wonder if the changes will last. But those moments grow fewer. As time passes and our new family patterns prove themselves sustainable, the path forward is not perfect. Mom still attends her meetings 3 times a week. Dad continues his individual therapy, and our family sessions happen twice a month. We are learning a new language of honesty, one awkward conversation at a time. There are still moments of tension, old patterns that try to reassert themselves, but we catch them faster now. Last week, Mom got a part-time job at a local bookstore. The pay is modest, but the routine and responsibility have been good for her. Dad has learned to step back, allowing her to manage her own recovery without his controlling oversight. Lisa is thriving in her new job, slowly rebuilding her savings with a financial literacy that comes from hard experience. As for me, I now keep my financial information private, not from mistrust, but as a healthy boundary. I visit my parents regularly, but maintain the sanctuary of my own apartment. I have learned that love can be both close and separate, supportive and bounded. If there is one thing I hope you take from my story, it is this: true compassion sometimes requires difficult actions. The easy path of enabling and secret keeping may seem kinder in the moment, but it only postpones the inevitable reckoning. Real love has the courage to face painful truths and to stand firm when necessary. What about your families? Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with someone you love? Did you find the courage to take a stand when it would have been easier to look away? Let me know in the comments. And please, hit that like and subscribe button if this story resonated with you. Sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the deepest healing, and your story might be the one that gives someone else the courage they need. Thank you for listening. Remember, trust should be treasured, boundaries should be respected, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply tell the truth.